Yo, welcome to another episode of the Larry Ohh Show. I got my co-host with me, as always, to the left of me.
What's going on, y'all? It's John Phelps.
I'm Larry Ohh. This is an FL Studio podcast where we talk about everything FL Studio and music production related.
What else?
Every single week, we do a massive giveaway where I give away every single one of my courses from YouHelpMe.com to 5 winners in the comment section here on YouTube. All you got to do to enter and win is listen for the key phrase and type it down in the comment section here on YouTube only.
Right on.
And you're entered. And every week, we pick 5 winners.
So run over to the comments, drop the keyword when you hear it.
But what I was thinking about on the way here is maybe we could talk about reversing samples.
A lot of people use this technique. A lot of people love to use this technique, but it can be tricky.
Yeah, so let's say we got this loop right here, right? So let's say, I mean, you could go the route of reversing it. Obviously, it's just, that's straightforward. You just reverse it. If you want that to be like your main groove, that's what you can do. But what I'm thinking is if, let's say I want to add a layer on top of that that's reversed. There's a chord progression going on here. I talked about this a while back, so if you missed it, that's cool. If you heard this, skip over, whatever. But like, there'll be some more gems in here. What I would do is I would duplicate this down and I would make it unique as sample, save it. And then what I would do is I would go here, I would go to chop, and then I would go to time-based, and I think it would be in bars. Yes. So it would be in bars, then reverse it. But what you're going to do is actually like reverse that order and then just snap these in. And now it's going to match that chord progression, because if you don't do this, and then you try to layer it in, and I'll show you what it would sound like. So let's say we didn't do that. We just brought this guy down here. We made it unique as sample, and we reversed it. And now I'll show you kind of like an A-B thing. Here's the wrong way to do it, and here's how it's going to sound like it's kind of out of key, or like, you know, things will start to clash a little bit. Right away, it's out. You might be able to get away with doing something like some EQing to get around that, but the better way to do it, where the chords actually match up, where this is now a reverse of this section, a reverse part of this section right here. So you can hear the difference right away.
Yeah.
It just sounds like a warped version of what's already going on. You can hear those chords. So that will order them correctly. So you would do just the chop and beats, chop, time-based, in bars, and reverse it. And then a way to really get things to sound clean is, because you're still going to have some clashing, send it to their own mixer tracks, and then name this one reverse just so we know what it is. And then it's really, and then, I mean, it depends on what you like. Mm-hmm. Like now it's a preference. Like, which one do you want to shine through more? So let's say if I want the reverse to shine through more, I'm probably going to put an EQ on both of them, but I'll go with the original first. EQ 2. And then I'll do like a high pass. Something like that. And you hear some clicks and pops in there, and you could do a couple different things. You can go back to the sampler, generic bleeding. That's going to give you those little crossfades. So if there's any clicks and pops, or you can use the new feature like this, where you can trim up and you can get rid of clicks and pops by hand. That sounds clean.
And another good thing is like creating space within your mix between these two dynamic kind of pieces. So one thing that I'll sometimes do is hop into each sampler and pan one to the left, one to the right. And that's just kind of freeing up a lot of middle ground that you'll want your drums to kind of fill up at some point when they get added in. and especially with these samples that like you can very easily like EQ too much and take too much life out of each one. So like just panning them and gain staging them appropriately can get a lot of that muffled sound that you don't necessarily want out of the way, and you're not doing too much like heavy lifting with your EQs.
Right. A lot of times what I'll do with that same exact idea in mind, like the same like motive really, is use the stereo delay.
Hell yeah.
And the pre-computed effects.
Underrated.
And I'll just like knock that to the left, just like 1 or 2 mouse clicks. Like, you know, the mouse wheel has those clicks.
Yeah.
I'll just go like maybe like 2 clicks down on the mouse wheel.
Yep.
So whatever that is, just a little bit that way to the left. And then like you said too, go to the other one and I'll do it the opposite way, like a little bit to the right. And then when you hear that, you just created so much space in the middle.
Yeah. Like you can hear exactly where the drums are going to fit nicely.
Yeah, you just, that alone right there just created a ton of space in the middle.
A big thing I've been on lately is like this idea of resampling, where, so like you have 2 distinct pieces of like, you know, audio, for instance, in this thing. And I'll literally, once I get them to like a palette that I like, a dynamic that I like, I'll just, it's called printing, where I just, you know, Alt-R using whatever, maybe the master track since it's still early on in the session. And then you just have one file that has both of those components within it, and you can put a reverb on that. You
so
can
you would put those together?
Oh,
like
yeah.
print those together, so maybe go to the master and do it? Or if you had a bus, so you go...
Yeah, if you had a bus when like there's more going on, but yeah, when there's only one thing going on like that, I'll just put an Alt-R on the master and print that baby. So it's just those 2 pieces right there.
So that has both of them in there.
And you can even reverse that now.
Yeah.
You can even reverse that now.
It gives it a different texture for sure, because you're resampling a sample that you sampled that you chopped. Like, so
it gets
it's like
deep.
That's why, I mean, we've said this so many times, like, convert your MIDI to audio, because you could be doing this kind of stuff like with your own samples, with your own loops, with your own music, because you'll get what you think is a finished product with MIDI. And I've said this in the past, again, like I maybe sound like a broken record, but it's true. I used to be worried about converting my MIDI to audio, like, oh, I don't want to commit to it. What if I want to change it? You know, what if I want to change this? And once I started doing that and just consolidating MIDI to audio, it gave me so many more ideas. And you can have a basic ass melody and flip it into something crazy if you convert it to audio.
You gained, what it is you gained confidence in your ability to work with it and work within the limitation. Like a lot of times limits on your own work are a great way to just get good flavor out of something. You know what I mean? And sometimes like having all the digital delays and the digital reverbs can take away from just like getting a really quality piece of thing printed to audio, you know? And what's great about audio printing now, if you want to make a hard drop at the end of that 8-bar loop or whatever, you can just cut something right off. And if there's no delay on that input, or if you haven't automated the delay,
it'll be nice and dry.
Nice and dry. So when them, you know, drums come back in, it just hits that extra hard.
You know, like, you know what taught me a lot, bro, to be honest? Like stuff like that, like you're saying right now, that makes me think of one thing. EDM producers taught me so much. And I got into EDM, not crazy heavy, like I'm no pro in EDM at all whatsoever, but like I did my fair share of EDM style stuff and inspired stuff. A lot of my stuff was like inspired by EDM music and EDM beats and producers. So what I would do is like I would hang out with a couple of guys that were locally, they were into EDM, they were DJ producers / you know, both. A lot of EDM guys and girls are both. You know, you find like an EDM DJ that also produces. So there was a couple of them, and there was this one time, like, I'm asking this dude, I'm like, yo, how do you get that to sound so dry when you cut that like that? Even though I'm seeing all the MIDI, I'm seeing all the stuff in there, and it was something so basic. So I'm talking maybe like, I don't know, 7, 8, 9 years ago, right? And I'm like, yo, how do you get it to sound so, like, because I know there's reverb and there's delay going on right here, and I know it's like, it's not that dry. When you stop, like, and I don't see any automation there. So I'm like, what are you doing? You're like, you're not doing automation. I'm hearing this cut and it gets completely dry. Mind you, he's using I think Ableton, so I don't know 100% of what I'm looking at. He's like, yo, just all you got to do is print that one little section, the whole master of it, print that to audio. Just highlight, like say you have an entire beat going on, just print this ending right here. Print that to audio, just that, and then you would go to the MIDI. Let's pretend this is MIDI. Peel back all that MIDI right there, right? Let's just say this is MIDI, right? Pretending here this is MIDI and not in stretch mode. Pretending this is MIDI for a third time. Pretending this is MIDI. Peel that back, but let the audio that you just printed, let that shine in through there, and then do your cut at the end of it.
Right. Let it stand in.
You might have to do a little bit of leveling because sometimes that audio will come in. You drop that audio in the playlist, and now whatever's on your master,
it's gonna pump it up.
Pay attention to what you have on your master when you do this, because it's gonna double what you did to it. So it's gonna, if you have a soft clipper or a limiter on your master, and then you do this and you put the audio in here, you're gonna be limiting it and soft clipping it again.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So be mindful of that. It might sound a little bit louder, but blend those two pieces together, and then you have a drop where it can be completely dry.
Right. And don't overthink shit. You know, with the music stuff, all it is feel. So you're making sure that when you drop in that printed version, all you got to do is listen to it. And if it sounds louder, turn it down. Play it back. Now it doesn't sound as loud, but it's still a little quiet. Boom, bring it back. You know what I'm saying? It's that's the thing is like with like it's kind of adjacent to this whole idea of like sourcing your artifacts for your sessions a little bit differently. Like lately, I've unlearned a lot of this component of like dropping new stems into the original session. So like recently I finished up a song with a buddy of mine living in San Diego, and I sent him the song just like, hey, listen to this. He sends me back a version with a guitar part. And I was like, oh my God. So I find a way for him to like isolate the guitar, because he's not a recording artist. He's just a dude vibing. So he sent me like a video file, had to convert it, but it was an isolated guitar track. And I was trying to find the original session. I just couldn't find it. So I was like, wait a minute. Just send him, or just make a session with the version that I sent him. And then work with those two. So it's kind of like this unlearning thing, because like if you're like true to this purist kind of person like we are, like you're like, oh, go to the original session, because you'll have full control over things and this, that, the third. But honestly, when it comes down to the finished product, bro, people are gonna feel that shit more than they know anything 100%. About the settings on the session. So you know, again, guys, just like be listening to what you're doing instead of trying to do things the right way. Just try to do things that are the right thing. You know what I mean? Don't do it the right way. Just make it feel right. You know what I mean? And take a chance. You know, whenever you make a mistake or whenever you do something accidentally, just test it out, audition it, see if it sounds good. You know. With all this stuff, it's really, you know, we said this with the interview with when Young Fire was on the podcast. It's like it really is alchemy, because you're getting all these pieces to blend together and synthesize nicely. So, you know, if you have to drop in a printed version to get a dry drop on something, go for it.
It's all just finding ways to make things work. I want to show
workarounds.
I want to if I can find a loop real quick with something else that I had in mind. And essentially it's just like having a tail. Like if something has a tail, which these don't, because FL Cloud is cool like that, where they want them to loop perfectly. So I think what they actually do is they tell producers that submit these loops to make sure that they have maybe loop points in them, and that they cut at the end. Like there's no reverb or delay tail. But I'm trying to find one, because I like using reverb and delay tails. I like using them for transitional things. If you know me and if you've seen a bunch of my videos, I talk about it all the time.
Oh, I know.
Like this right here.
That's
I think
got a tail.
This might have something.
It's a little bit of a tail.
Yep, it has a little bit. So like this one right here. Yep. So that like little bit right there, some people might trim that. Say we're at 160 BPM for this, just to get everything on grid. Just re-stretch those now. And then what I like to do is I'll go to cut. I'll go to the razor and I will cut that and I'll use it. So I'll make this, I'll bring this guy down. I'll make this unique as sample, save it, normalize it, reverse it, trim it, maybe use a sample start time so that way it doesn't go crazy at the end. Add some stereo delay. You got a nice little transition effect. Maybe drop the pitch. Too low. If it's too low, I'll put it back up. Sometimes I'll even try like pitching it up if that works. If it works, sometimes I'll even make two of them. I'll duplicate it. I'll do one low pitch, one high pitch.
Hell yeah.
And then do the same idea where we talked about before, where I pan one slightly or stereo delay one slightly to the left or to the right. I'll throw an EQ on it, thin it out. If it's not sticking out in the mix too much, maybe you got to take some low end out of there, thin it up. And then I'll use that as a transitional effect towards the end if it works. You know what I'm saying? If it works there, it works there. A lot of times it'll be...
And see right there, that's a little understated gem right there. See, you took a little bit off, a little bit extra off the wind up there. Yeah, because I don't want it to like click and pop right at the end. I want it to be a smooth transition because this is the transient of like, like the next... the next downbeat or whatever. So I want it to be like a smooth transition into that. And that's a finesse thing for all you guys listening. Yep. It's like you only learn that just by doing it. You know what I'm saying? Like where you're like, oh, that's the part that you don't really want because it's kind of like the payoff, but not how you want it.
And that's just from years and years of doing like this effect. And I know for a fact that just by looking at that sound wave where it spiked right there, I know I don't want that.
Right.
Whereas maybe that hurts me because maybe it would have sounded good, but I know just by habit, I'm like, I'm getting rid of it. Because I know roughly like what it's going to sound like. I want a smooth blend, like going right into the next part. And then if you can hear it, you can. If you can't, it's very subtle.
Nice.
Very subtle.
If you pitch it up, it'll sound crazy.
Yeah, because right now, like the rest of that loop is like kind of low. That might be too loud. There it is.
That's nice.
And then this is something that is so subtle just because of what it is. It might sound good like in the mix of like that. I like that. Like, it's just in there. And it sounds like it's a part of the loop now. And you just add it to a loop. So it's like, I don't know. People say, like, don't use loops, don't use loops. There's ways to get creative with them. There's tons and tons of ways to get creative with your loops, other people's loops. Just have fun, sit there, zone out. However you zone out on stuff, do that when you're making music.
For sure.
You know, if you're used to, like, sitting there and you can zone out on things a certain way, like, try to figure out ways to do that with your music. And not try to just get to the result the fastest way possible. Sit there for an hour on a loop sometimes. Like,
for sure. Because the people that just throw a sample in there and don't do anything to it, like, y'all aren't really benefiting from the full power of the DAW. So that's why you shouldn't do it. Let alone the fact that it's like not creative and it's kind of a travesty that people like have this ability to do all this, but then they're just like, oh, I'll just loop it up and put some hard ass drums over it. It's like, come on, bro. Like,
and it's different too, because I think about this too. It's different if a lot of placement producers they do that. There's a lot of, when it comes to the industry nowadays, there's the loop makers and then there's like the drum makers. So like the drum makers will get these loops, and a lot of times, not every time, a lot of times they sauce it up too, but they're also, you know, they're getting these loops from people they know make fire loops, and they're looking for a collaboration. So in that sense, it's a little bit different. Same idea with the looping, with loops and stuff, but
and none of these producers want to hear a pack that they know where it came from. Either. If you send, like, for instance, if you send TM88 some loops that he knows like are floating around Reddit, He's not going to be.
Oh, he doesn't.
He's not. He's not using that.
Yeah.
Let alone the fact that he's got guys that he trusts to do that whole thing.
Yeah.
But if hypothetically, if you were to just send him a pack of beats and he sniped it as being like from one of the forums, he's gonna be like, "Come on, bro. You got to think these guys are like lives. Like this is their livelihood. This is their everything. So they're tapped in a way that is like next level. You know what I'm saying? Larry over here for real is like another example of that, where it's like, you know, you understand the game to a certain level or at a certain level where like you don't want to hear no basic shit.
For real,
so if you're trying to get placements, if you're trying to get luck, if you're trying to get collaborations, spend some time, you know, spend time on this shit, because this shit is a craft. You know, people really live and die behind making music. And, you know, not to sound dramatic, but that's what it is. Put your heart and soul into it.
There was one more like reverse tip, and it just dawned on me, and hopefully I can remember it real quick. And I think it's in the piano roll. It's not necessarily the same idea, but it's for MIDI. So like we showed you how to reverse MIDI. I mean, showed you how to reverse audio. It's kind of self-explanatory, but there are like a couple of different cool techniques that you can do that will help your chord progressions to sound better and match up. But you can also do that inside the piano roll. So let's say if we have this chord progression. And I believe it's Alt and Y. Yep, score flipper. So it just essentially flipped. And they don't look 100% right. Flip horizontally, flip vertically. Wow. Is that new? Preserve start times. There we go. All right, so now it looked like it messed it up. If you have this preserve start times on.
That's a cracked, that display is cracked. How it's like on the other side of it is mad funny.
Yeah, it looks like a different language where you read from right to left. So yeah, you can literally like just flip your melodies, flip your chord progressions. If you're feeling stuck, if it sounds bland, try doing something like that. I mean, there's all these different ways. That's just the only way that I know that you can like reverse your MIDI, right? And then what's cool is I saw this trick and I cannot remember from who. So like I want something a little bit more involved, but I don't know if I can. I want something that has like a bunch of other notes on it. All right, and so then let's say if we flip that whole thing again and accept, or go the opposite way, right? And then if you were to, I'll do this real quick. It might not be 100% the way that I'm thinking about right now or the way that somebody did it, but drop it in a mixer track and let me see. Drop that MIDI in here and record that to audio on the master or whatever track that is. Then take that audio wherever the hell it went. Where'd it go? Where'd it go?
Was it select because you selected pattern? Yeah, there it is.
And then reverse this.
Exactly.
So, I mean, there's just different ways to mess with things. And obviously a different melody is going to sound different or better than that. But that idea, that technique is something cool that, like, you just like if normally don't think about.
If you're watching the podcast right now, pause the podcast. We're about to do the keyword. And go to your FL and try that out with something that you got going on. Like, literally just try out whatever we just did on the pod. Like, because it works with so much different stuff.
Yep.
Like you can use these techniques with anything that you got going on. Anything that you got in MIDI, try printing it, manipulating it from there, because you never know what you could stumble across, for real.
Actually, good timing for that, because I think we're We're going to do the key phrase and we'll wrap it. So the
Come
key
on,
phrase
man.
for today is "you reverse me." Drop that down in the comment section. And again, we're going to be picking 5 winners to win every single one of my courses from youhelpme.com. If you haven't, please make sure you like, comment, subscribe. And as always, share this with a friend if you get me.